Welcome to another edition of Yukon Farm Talks. This is a live video podcast series where we talk with people in the agriculture industry who share important and relevant information and insights for new and beginning farmers and ranchers. These are short and focused conversations that generally last about 20 to 30 minutes. First, we ask our guests to share their story in agriculture, and then we ask them to talk about one thing that they think someone getting started in agriculture needs to know. For those of you tuning into the live Zoom feed, we hope you'll submit questions in the chat window. As we get to the end, I'll try to pick out a question to ask our guest. All of these shows are recorded and posted online on our webpage, where you'll also find an online discussion forum. You can ask questions in the forum anytime, and we'll respond to additional questions there that we don't get to during the live episode. Our guest today is Ryan Boner. Ryan is a sixth-generation rancher from East Central Wyoming. His family has been raising sheep and cattle in Converse County since 1909. After graduating from Glen Rock High School, he attended the University of Wyoming, earning a degree in livestock business management. After school, he came back to the family operation. At that time, his father and his two brothers were all running their ranches and farmed together. As Ryan is one of the youngest of the next generation, the family soon decided to work through generational transition for Ryan and his cousins. He believes that generational transition is one of the most important tasks you will face in agriculture. Their operation is very diverse, running a Black Angus commercial cow-calf herd, as well as registered Black Angus and Red Angus seed stock herds. They also have a large-scale commercial range ewe herd and a smaller Targhee and Rambouillet seed stock herd. The family has spent a lot of time and effort over the last century to help improve what was a dying sheep industry. Ryan, I'm so glad you're able to join us for this discussion. We always start off this conversation by giving our guests a chance to talk about their own story in agriculture. Please tell me about those first few years after you graduated from UW. I know that those first few years can often be stressful. Please tell us about your background, how you got to this point in your life and career, and maybe talk a little bit more about how and why you've chosen to become directly involved in agriculture, as well as in encouraging and mentoring other beginning ranchers.
Thank you, Keith, first of all, for having me on today. I'm super passionate about agriculture and would love to talk with anybody who is currently listening or sees this later on YouTube as well. I'm so passionate about agriculture. It's been something that's been in my heart since I was a small child. Uh, the first few years, to answer your questions, the first few years, coming back to the ranch full time, was definitely a challenge between Dad and I, and we've talked about it a bunch. It's not easy for multi generations to get along together, and it's a family business, which a lot of times you don't see eye to eye, and at the same time, you're still family. At the end of the day, you share Christmas dinner and Easter dinner together, and it creates its own unique challenges. Um, I would say though that it has been the best experience of my life. As soon as I came back to the ranch, I really felt at home in the essence that I'm doing what I want to spend my life doing, and I thought that that was so important. Uh, and I think there's nothing more important than trying to help feed and clothe the world, and it's something that we're doing. And even if we're just a small part of it, it's still part of it.
Thanks for that. And having as diverse an operation as you have, time management has to be something. We were talking earlier about you're getting ready for the shears, and evidently that means that lambing will soon follow.
Yes, that's right. And I guess to some essence, I'm probably a glutton for punishment as far as time management. Um, we are. We just finished our annual bull sale, about 2 weeks ago, and we're right in the middle of calving still. Well, kind of the tail end of calving, I guess. We will finish in the next 10 days or so on our calving. But and as it goes, sometimes with sheep, I'm actually shed lambing about 100 head of ewes right now, uh, which I was just checking on right before I got on. Just had a ewe that had a set of twins. Um, but no doubt, time management is definitely something that is really hard in this industry. There's a lot of work that goes into very little pay often. Um, but like I said earlier, if you're truly passionate about it and you care about it, it's more, in my opinion, it's more of a lifestyle choice than it is a 9 to 5 job or just a job for you. It's not a career, it's a lifestyle.
So you mentioned earlier about family and those first few years. Do you have any insights that you'd like to share about ways to smooth that transition between family members and between generations?
Yeah, absolutely, yes. The biggest and most important thing, and well, I guess to preface it, to be honest, you're not all going to see eye to eye, and you're going to have some emotion attached with what you do because you care so much. You all care so much about what you do. And the most important thing, in my opinion, is to understand that you are all there with the same goal and same thing in mind, that you want to carry this on, and all the hard work that you do every day and all of that a lot of generations have spent their entire life doing. You want to carry that forward, and you all are very passionate about it, and to keep that in mind when anytime you get some contention or disagree or don't see eye to eye, to remember first and foremost that you all are passionate about what you're doing.
Is there anything that you wish you had known when you came back from school that you know now that you wish had been more clear in your mind when you came back?
Oh, sure. Gosh, a lot came to mind in that. Yeah. Um, um, transitioning generate as far as generational transition in agriculture, it's such a tough and dynamic subject. And just like we are all individuals, that each operation is an individual scenario as well. There's no two, it's not a the shoe fits and we all wear it kind of scenario. Um, but I would say, to answer your question, is don't be afraid to ask the tough questions in life, because they're on your mind, and you might, in my opinion, I personally was very afraid to ask, so what is the plan? What does my future look like? What is your plan, dad, or my uncles, or even grandpa? What was your plan? What is your plan with the ranch, and how is that going to look, to kind of define my future in a lot of ways? And don't be afraid to start asking some of those tough questions, and do it do it in a way that is accepting to others as well, because they're not easy to ask. Most of the time, when you first ask, you're probably going to get shut down. Oh, we don't have time for this, we're not having this discussion. You're going to have a lot of that sometimes in multi generations, but maybe all you need to do is reword it into a way, and ask the question in a way that they're receptive to listen and help you through what you're worried about.
Thanks for sharing your story. It's always helpful for our listeners to hear about how someone like yourself found their path and to share their story. So, as we've talked about, the main purpose of this video podcast is to ask our guests to share something we call their one thing. In other words, we want them to tell us about one thing that they think new and beginning farmers really need to know or keep in mind, be thinking about, or be doing as they're in the beginning stages and getting ready to take on their own challenge of continuing or starting an agriculture operation. I know that you have some thoughts to share with us and our audience of ag entrepreneurs about your grandfather's advice. In the profitable years, put it in your pocket. In the lean years, put it in your heart. And the items you consider essential in pursuing success in production agriculture. So, Ryan, please tell us about the one thing that you want to share with our new and beginning producer audience today.
Yeah, gosh, thank you, Keith. My grandpa told me that one day. I'll never forget the day. But told it to me one day, and I was a pretty young kid. I think I was probably 12 or 13. Um, the way he said it, first of all, he meant it, and I could tell. And it has stuck in my mind the whole time through all of our struggles that um, generation upon generation, we've all had all of our own struggles. But we've all always had some struggles. And it resonates with me so much when he said it, just in the profitable years, put it in your pocket. And in the lean years, you put it in your heart. And in my opinion, there's nothing more true in agriculture than that, because there will be ups and downs and there will be mountains and valleys that you'll go through, and such is life. And it's so great to see that in that light that, in the years we're doing pretty good, we're going to keep at it and we're going to keep going. But we'll also know that there are going to be years where we're not so profitable and we're not doing very good. And in this industry, when we have so much passion into it, sometimes it really hurts, and it's a more emotional than it is just business mindset. There's a lot of emotion and passion that goes into agriculture, and sometimes on those lean years you do have to put it in your heart, and you do have to remember, geez, for us personally, last winter was a great example of that. We had 156 inches of snow in 4 months at my house, and it was beyond the most snow on record that Glen Rock, Wyoming has ever seen by quite a bit. And we couldn't find any hired help to help us out. And we really struggled, and it was tough. I won't forget what happened there. And it was kind of one of those deals that, you know what? That's one of those. You put that in your heart and you remember why you're doing what you're doing, and find some passion and care about it and keep going, because there's going to be profitable years ahead. There's going to be better times ahead, but you have to just settle in of, you know what, it's okay that they're not all that way. Not every year is just nice and easy and fun. And honestly, in this industry, most years probably are not. But if you care enough about it, then they will be.
So you have a degree from UW. Do you believe that that background helps day-to-day management or a waste of time or somewhere in between? How would you describe that?
Well, I genuinely think it was a huge benefit to me to go to school at UW. And I know we have UW Extension online as well. And not necessarily UW. I would never pick a different school. I think it was exactly what I was looking for and exactly what it should have been. Um, I think the most important lessons that I learned from going to school, versus just graduating high school and coming back to the ranch and doing what I wanted to spend my life doing. The most important thing that I learned is to think for myself and think outside of, what grandpa or dad had exactly. This is the way that we do things, and that's the way things have always been. uh, Whit Stewart actually is the sheep specialist at UW, and one of my favorite quotes that he always says is the most expensive 7 words in agriculture are because we've always done it that way. And I think if nothing else for me, the biggest benefit that I got from going to college was that exact lesson of thinking for yourself and maybe I should be questioning it. And if the answer is right and what we're doing is correct, then awesome. That's exactly what it should be. And and if there's an off chance there's maybe something better or something to try or something, even if I fail at something, trying something new, then at least we tried and we're trying to strive for more than where we are currently at today.
Well, I think that's very important. We often learn more from our mistakes than we do from success. Particularly with sheep, managing market risk is more difficult given volatility we've seen in the recent past. What advice would you give to producers that are primarily in cash markets?
Gosh, uh, call me and I'll help you work it out for any particular year. It is a very volatile market right now. Since COVID has been, we've seen extreme volatility as far as the meat market and sheep production, and I think a lot of that is right during COVID when the market really changed. The Mountain States Lamb Co-op filed for bankruptcy in the middle of 2020, and it really changed that market and created a bunch of volatility. Just in, okay, where are we going to harvest these lambs? And nobody really found the answer. And uh, Double J and Jeff and Jay Hasbrook really stepped up, and um, they started their San Angelo plant, Double J Meats, which was actually an old plant that had closed down in, I think, 2006. But anyway, there was a while there, just supply and demand wise, that we weren't really sure what we were going to do with it. Um, but knew we needed to come up with some sort of solution. And then during COVID, during the lockdown and all that stuff, the consumer demand increased a bunch, uh, just because I think people were kind of bored at home, wanting to do some different stuff. And so the retail side of the lamb market kind of exploded, and then lamb was worth a bunch more, and then maybe tapered off back to what it would have normally been, which was tough to also swallow. However, the demand for lamb over the last few years has really increased a bunch. There are a lot of people my age ish, millennials, that are curious about lamb and are super interested in, hey, I'll try it out. And I've got a 3-step plan for myself that somebody else taught me, that how to get my friends to eat lamb. And once they start to, seems like they never go away from it.
You have some thoughts about pros and cons of running both sheep and cattle that can make it tougher, especially where you have calving and then lambing and your seed stock operation. That can make it tougher, but it also creates some opportunities for operators. What would you say the cons were first, and then the pros?
The cons I would say is, anytime you're running a multi-species operation, you are definitely going to um, create a larger workload. For us personal example. It seems like when we are calving, when anybody's calving, they're busy calving, and but then you jump right into, as soon as you get done with one project, you jump right into, okay, now we're lambing, and then you kind of jump into, shearing or breeding cows back. And a lot of times, if you're doing multiple things, it can kind of create multiple seasons that didn't normally exist in your operation, and that can be really difficult to manage with some thought and continual thought, because it is dynamic and it should change some from time to time. But it is definitely a more of a time management thing, and that to me I think is the biggest con. um, as far as pros, first and foremost, uh, agriculture is a very risky business, and riskier than it should be, in my opinion. Um, but you have to be willing to create some risk and be passionate about agriculture. But if you can get into multiple avenues of income and you're not getting paid just once a year, say on your weaned steer calves or whatever, if you can create, okay, now we're getting paid on our weaned steer calves, and we're also feeding out some lambs and maybe a few of those smaller heifers that we wanted to cull. We'll keep them back and run them as long yearlings to create some extra income. But the biggest benefit to doing multiple things, or say, you put up your own hay, or you put up enough hay to sell some hay, is diversifying your income in agriculture is the most beneficial thing you can do, because the markets are volatile and controlled by things that are far out of your control as an individual. And anything you can do to limit your risk is an important thing to think about.
Thank you so much for talking with us this evening. We appreciate you taking the time to share your insights and experience for the benefit of new and beginning farmers. Again, thanks so much for sharing your evening with us.
Yeah, thank you, Keith, and thanks for having me. So happy to help, and just glad to be a part of this. And I always love talking about agriculture. And if I could, and maybe you were going to ask, but if I could leave with at least one more thing, especially specifically for um, first time, newer producers or younger producers that are just coming back to their place, um, is just understand you're for sure going to make a lot of mistakes. I make mistakes every single day. I try to. I work at it to just, I'm striving hard enough. I'm going to make mistakes. I'm going for stuff big enough that I'm going to make some mistakes along the way. But as long as you are steadfast and understand that this is what you want to do for your life and it's your life choice, then it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to fail. And you're not a failure if you fail. Just keep going, keep working, and keep trying to be better. Learn from your mistakes, but keep going forward.
We've got just a few more moments left, but we had another question come in, and it's pretty general, but what do you see as the future of the sheep industry in Wyoming?
Oh, very interesting. That's a great question. Gosh, I'm gonna work my way backwards a little bit because that's how my brain works, unfortunately. But the sheep industry is expanding so quickly, and you see it a lot in the Midwest and different stuff with hair sheep. Um, and just because the capital expense is so much easier to get in the sheep industry than the cattle industry, but you see it growing, and you see the demand for lamb constantly growing. And um, you know, to get back to Wyoming, historically, there has been significant more sheep in Wyoming than there are today. And honestly, a big part of Wyoming, even from my house west, there is a lot of sheep country that should be sheep country and honestly would benefit cow producers and cattle producers if we raised some more sheep in that area. Um, I think the future, honestly, for the sheep industry, to me, it's bright beyond, in my opinion. Not honestly, the sheep industry in itself, in my opinion, is a low hanging fruit in agriculture, in that there's money to be made. And even, for first, especially for first time producers, you can get into the industry for a relatively low expense. It's more fun than raising chickens, I promise. And there's nothing better than a newborn lamb just trying to figure out how to stand on wobbly legs.
Thanks so much, Ryan.
Try.
We'll do it for this episode of You Can Farm Talks. Thanks to those of you who took the time to join the live discussion and submit questions. The recording for this episode and all our previous episodes will be posted and archived on our website and on our YouTube page. If you have any more questions, or if you're watching the recorded episode and didn't get a chance to ask them, please feel free to send questions via email, or even better, by adding them to the online discussion forum. We will try to respond to as many questions as we can and share the answers online. Stay tuned for information about the next You Can Farm Talks conversation. We'll be sharing details about who our next guest will be and when the episode will take place soon. Check back on our You Can Farm website and Facebook page. Funding for this program has been provided by the USDA's NIFA BFRDP program. We'd also like to thank Custom Ag Solutions, Right Risk, and especially our partners at University of Wyoming Extension. And we'd especially like to thank Ryan Boner for joining us tonight. Thanks for listening to You Can Farm Talks.